The big, beautiful bill has passed Congress, and today, July 4th, President Trump will sign it into law. It's a great thing for Donald Trump's presidency, but a bad thing for America. Not for all those silly reasons that Democrats are pretending, like it cuts too much and a million billion people are going to die, but because it cuts too little. I understand the pragmatic argument that we needed to pass this bill, but I wish the American people were ready for that hard conversation we need to have. I would sit all 350 million of you down and I'd say, listen, we gave you this credit card for emergencies, and you've run up the bill. Your mother and I are going to have to cut that thing up into little pieces because you can't seem to be responsible. Now go to your room and no supper. And if that conversation didn't work, I just take out a whole bunch of loans and then pass that generational debt on to my children because that's the American way. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay. Hello, everybody. I know you're excited, not only because a new episode of the Chrestman Conversation has dropped today, but because it is July 4th and because it's a holiday and also because I feel a little run down today, we are going to have a little bit of an abbreviated episode. And I know I often say this, but I say it's going to be abbreviated and then talk for 40 minutes is what I mean. But it is going to be abbreviated today because I just want to do a quick little something about the big, beautiful bill. And that's it. That's all we're going to talk about. So let's get into that. But first, our favorite comment from last week. Our favorite comment comes from at John Jost 4033, who said, quote, "Wow, you have won the yearly award for the most delusional post of 2025. Congratulations," end quote. John, thank you. Thank you so much. It's embarrassing really how often I win. I just basically almost everything I do, I tend to be the best at it. And so my house is actually just full of trophies and awards and I don't have room. So if you want to, just feel free to drop me a check for the monetary value of that prize and I'll cash it to make you feel better. But I know a person like yourself who's probably a loser, and it's fine. A lot of people are. It's okay. It's all right. I'm used to winning. You're not. It's fine. I get it. It's a little bit of envy, a little bit of jealousy, but please just send the check. I don't need the money. I'm rolling in it, but it's fine anyway. I always like extra little pocket change. I could give it to the people outside who just gather around my building waiting for wisdom. It's okay. And DM me for the address. It's fine. Anyway, thanks, John. Appreciate you. Topic. So let's get right into the topic. The only topic I want to talk about today, topic one, the big, beautiful bill. Is it big and beautiful? I don't know. It's big. That's for sure. It's over 800 pages. So that to me right there says a lot about this bill. Because if it's over 800 pages, chances are there's a lot of nonsense in there that we don't want. But at the same time, there's a lot of good things too. And it's important that this bill was passed because if this bill wasn't passed, that would have put Donald Trump in some serious trouble coming into the midterms and possibly going into the next election cycle for the next Republican, or if we just decide to make Trump emperor and he runs for a third term. Who knows? So it would be bad if it didn't pass. So it's a good thing. And also it makes Trump, it just makes him right. He's right about a lot of things, and he was right. He said that this would get through, and he knew it. He knew how to make it happen because there was a lot of resistance from a lot of Republicans, and he basically got almost everybody in line to pass this thing through a very slim majority in both the House and the Senate, and it was a good thing. It's not the end of the world. This bill has some things in there that I wish it didn't, and it has some things that are good, and we'll go through that a little bit. But this is actually a big deal and a big win for Donald Trump. Make no mistake about it. This is a victory for the Republican Party. So the bill itself was passed through a process known as reconciliation. Reconciliation is basically a workaround to get over the fact that you need 60 votes to pass most major legislation. So through reconciliation, they passed this big bill. Typically, you only get one per session. So meaning that they're not going to pass another bill through reconciliation. This was the one shot that they had to pass this and get the Republicans' list of things that they wanted done and start enacting Donald Trump's agenda on the legislative side. It's a big deal. And they passed it. And that's great. And you don't see that a lot. It passed very, very narrowly. There was actually a 50-50 split in the Senate, even though the Republicans have a majority. A couple Republicans were a little wishy-washy on it. So we wound up 50-50 with J.D. Vance being the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. It then goes over to the House. It passes with a vote of 218 to 214 in the House. Your only holdouts were Thomas Massey of Kentucky and Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania. Those are the only two Republicans who defected from it. And I don't know anything about Brian Fitzpatrick, so I'm not going to speak about him. I have really, I think, changed my opinion on Thomas Massey. There were some things that were pointed out to me over the last month that I never really considered. I think he speaks like a guy that I would like. He talks very like a principled person. He has very libertarian leanings. He's against the things that I'm against, which is big government spending. So you're looking at these things and you're saying he has all the things that I look for in somebody. He obviously understands the problem of government spending. When the government spends too much money, it's a bad thing. But Thomas Massey seems to be on the wrong side of a lot of votes. I understand, hey, this is a principled vote. Hey, great, you think it spends too much money. Hey, I agree. What are you going to do? Not pass this because, what, you want to cut the government spending? Hey, guess what? There's a lot of people in Congress who would love to cut government spending. You can't just be a guy who says all or nothing. It doesn't work that way. You have to make compromises. And Thomas Massey just seems to side with Democrats too much for me. And I think that's a bad thing. I don't think that if you're a Republican, you should be voting with the Democrat base against the Republican president and all your Republican colleagues. It's not because he's so wonderful. He's actually so conservative and Republican that he votes with the Democrats. It's a nonsense argument, and I understand being principled. I think it's good. And you'll see this in a minute, I do not like some of the things that are in this bill. It doesn't do enough to cut spending. It's like I said in the intro, I don't think that's a good thing. But if I'm in his place, am I going to vote for it? Absolutely. Why? Because it enacts a lot of the Republican agenda. And yes, I want to cut government spending, but that's not what this bill was actually about. This bill was about passing things that the Republicans ran on. And let's just talk about a couple of them. So, for example, the biggest thing, people are talking about this increase in the deficit. Oh my gosh, it increases the deficit because X, Y, and Z. Well, let me explain to you a lot of that increase in the quote unquote. And I'm actually, let's use the scare quotes here for emphasis. I know we're not supposed to, but we will. The increase in the deficit. It's a lie to say that this bill is going to blow out the deficit. It is. It's not true because of a number of factors. But one of the big ones is that they're using the tax cuts that are in this bill to say, look at how this explodes the deficit. And imagine this. Okay, and we'll use this as an easy example just to keep it simple. Imagine what they're saying is, okay, Americans are going to pay $10 in taxes over the next 10 years, right? You're going to pay $1 a year over on taxes for the next 10 years. This cuts the amount of taxes. So you're going to pay whatever it is, 50 cents. You're going to pay 50 cents on the dollar for the next 10 years. And instead of the government confiscating $10, we're only going to confiscate $5. And therefore, the deficit gets bigger because we cut taxes. Here's the problem with a lot of that. These tax cuts are what you're already paying. You already pay the amount that is going to be in this bill. There are some tax cut workarounds for a couple of different groups, but for the most part, you're going to pay the same taxes you were paying because the taxes were already cut in 2017. All this is doing is enshrining those tax cuts into law so everyone's taxes don't go up. So what they're doing is they're saying they're taking a tax rate that nobody pays because the tax cuts already exist, and they're treating it like this is lost revenue going forward, even though it's not, because you're already paying the amount of taxes. And they're using that to say, look, the government we could have confiscated this much money, and instead we're confiscating this much money. Look at all that money that this is cutting. And they're pretending it's from millionaires and billionaires, but the reality is that most of these tax cuts, percentage-wise, are going to the middle class. Like the amount of people in the middle class who get a tax cut is gigantic. And yes, the rich people get a tax cut too, but it affects the middle class. It really does. So this is a lie. It's a lie with numbers, because we can do that. Because I could also just play the same exact imaginary game. Imagine that the government confiscated 100% of everyone's money, and I say, oh my gosh, look at how bad these tax cuts are, because if we just took 100% of everyone's money, we're only taking 5% of that, or whatever the number is. And you'd say, well, my gosh, look at all these tax cuts. It's terrible because the government doesn't recoup revenue. That isn't the problem. It's not the problem why the deficit keeps growing. It's ridiculous. This is not, these losses don't exist in the way that Democrats are pretending. It also does great things for people who, again, work the middle class. No tax on tips, or I don't actually think it wound up being no tax on tips. We'll have to see. Again, it's 830 pages. It's just getting passed today. I don't know exactly everything that's in it. But the no tax on tips is in there. And I think it's actually reduced tax on tips. I don't think it actually wound up being no tax on tips. And also a reduced tax on overtime. So people who work in jobs that take tips, so people in the service industry, and people who work overtime. These are people you don't want to... If you've ever worked in a restaurant, being a server is hard work. And I know it's not the most mentally challenging work. Okay, there are a lot of other things that you can do that are harder mentally than being a server. But being a server is a demanding job. People treat their restaurant staff like trash. You deal with rude people. It's actually more labor intensive when you work in a busy place than you would think, because you're on your feet all day running back and forth, especially during lunch and dinner crowds. And it's hard. I worked in a restaurant for a number of years. You see people work hard. Restaurant business is not easy on people. So I don't look at somebody who works in a restaurant and say, oh my gosh, look at this person. They're running through it. They're doing great. Who needs to help them? Hell no. I worked in a restaurant. We should absolutely take care of people who work in restaurants. It's fine. The way that we've structured our service industry, where there's no minimum wage law, which I'm not a fan of minimum wage, whatever. We can talk about that at a different time. But where you pay people like $3 an hour, and then they live off of tips. So I think it's a good idea to reduce the tax on tips, because that's what you're working for. That's your whole salary, and I get it. There's some arguments to be made, but it's a good thing. This helps people in the middle class, middle and lower class, who disproportionately work those. You're not seeing a bunch of rich people working as servers and waitresses, so this is great. And these things are excellent. I think this is great. This is what Donald Trump and the Republican Party ran on. They ran on this thing. We're going to help the middle class. And these no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, these are real things that can affect real people. I don't know how it's going to shake out, for example, with people who have built-in overtime and all that. I don't know. I don't know all the provisions. I think it could be good. Who knows? We'll see how it shakes out. But I think it's a good thing that they're trying something. I like it. It also has a lot of new spending for military and the border wall, and to fund the mass deportations of illegal immigrants. This is great, and all this stuff is great. The Republican wish list. And it cuts money from Medicaid. Now, I know this is the part where you're watching Democrats just lose their mind, because they're saying, oh my God, it's cutting Medicaid, blah, blah, blah. Some of it's cuts because there's a provision in there that repeals some Obamacare restrictions on states. And I don't know exactly what that entails. Again, it's kind of new. I'm not 100% sure how that's going to shake out. I know it had something to do with the states that were being forced to implement Obamacare as part of Medicaid, but I don't know, again, exactly what that entails, but I know that got repealed. But one of the things that they're talking about, these quote-unquote cuts to Medicaid, is a work requirement for people who are not physically disabled, who are on Medicare. Medicaid, excuse me. Why are we not doing this already? I don't understand. What do you mean? You get government subsidized health care for free, and we don't have any work requirements that were already on the books, and people are treating this like it's a terrible thing. I'm sorry, if you're a physically able-bodied person, you should be working. And it's 80 hours a month. Okay? Do the math on that. That's not a lot of work. Okay? You're working part-time. And people are acting like this is a travesty. It's how could we do this, blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous. It is not difficult to go find a job. There are jobs out there. You can get one. I promise you. It's not crazy. So the Medicaid stuff, I think it's great. By the way, this is just my opinion. I would just get rid of Medicare, get rid of Medicaid. I don't like them as programs. That's where all of our money is going. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Those three programs, just cut them. And there are ways to do it, but that's, again, the conversation Americans don't want to have. This is why our spending is out of control. Those three programs. It's not the military. It's not welfare. It's not any of these other things that we think of as spending problems. It is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's it. Those three programs. They do not work. They are fiscally irresponsible programs, and in the case of Social Security, a straight-up Ponzi scheme. So we need to cut those things entirely. This doesn't do that, and that's what Thomas Massie wants. Thomas Massie wants real spending cuts, and if you want to talk real spending cuts, the only place you're going to get it, it's actually not going to be waste and fraud. it's going to be Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. So I think it's good that Donald Trump is at least cutting some things to Medicaid. Again, I don't know all of the details. It just got passed, blah, blah, blah. We've already talked about it. But anyway, this is good. No more Green New Deal. Cuts a lot of the subsidies for wind and solar and all that nonsense we don't need, which is excellent. I thought the best part about this in the last 2 days was watching Hakeem Jeffries get up there and make a speech. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat spoke for 9 hours about how terrible this bill was, and it was so bad, and it's going to ruin America, and it might cause the nuclear apocalypse, and blah, blah, blah. He spoke for 9 hours. And then he stopped, and everyone applauded. The Democrats and said, oh, my God, Hakeem Jeffries, what a brave man. He spoke for 9 hours and about nonsense, and then 10 minutes later, the bill passed because nobody cared. Nobody cared. Nobody was swayed. Nothing. It's just a place to grandstand and make yourself look good and say, oh, my God, look at I spoke for 9 hours. I'm a hero. No, you're not. It's silly. And it was really funny when, I'm not kidding, I think it was 15 minutes later, they passed the bill. It just as it stood. Nobody changed. It changed nothing, which is actually a perfect analogy for most Democratic politics. It is a bunch of grandstanding, nothing changes. And that was exactly what happened, and Hakeem Jeffries is the poster boy for that. I think that one of the things that would be nice is if we talked about the debt limit in a real way, because one of the other things this bill did is it does raise the debt limit by $5 trillion. And this is allowing us to avoid a default later, and so we don't have problems, we don't get our bond markets downgraded in value. And this is a big problem because our spending is out of control. And I think most Americans, they don't understand how dangerous this is for our republic. It is a big deal that we spend more now than we make in GDP. We cannot do this forever. It doesn't work forever. No empire lasts forever. And most of the time, it comes because of monetary problems. It's not the plague. It's not an asteroid. It's not an invasion from an opposing force. Empires crumble because they get too big and they don't have a way to support themselves. The Roman Republic just spread all over the globe, and it didn't just decay slowly one day, or it didn't just happen one day. It decayed slowly over time. And it happens on the fringes, and then it gets pushed to the center, and that's what happened. And you don't want to see that happen in America, because right now our biggest threat is not China, it's not Russia, it's not the anarchists who live in America. I really don't think any of them are going to overtake America unless America collapses financially. And then it's up for grabs. It's anybody's game. And we are going to get there at some point. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow. It could be 100 years from now. Who knows? I don't know how long we can go, because you've never seen anyone with this much debt in your life. It's never existed. So we don't know how sustainable it is. But it's all a house of cards, right? Because let's do the My Cousin Vinny thing. Hey, remember that great movie where he talks about, you're building a house and you've got nothing but bricks and they look so good and so solid, and then you turn them and you realize they're made of nothing. And that right now is the dollar. The dollar is not based on anything. It's based on what people think. And because it's based on what people think, they think the dollar is strong. They think it's a solid brick. The dollar, it's based on nothing. Okay? It is a flat line of nothing. And all it takes is for the world to just acknowledge that, and it collapses in on itself because we have too much debt. It's not backed by gold. There's nothing except public perception that makes America what it is. And paying down this debt, cutting our spending, shoring up our finances is a sure way to stay the global hegemon, which is what we want. Anyway, that literally is all I'm going to talk about. No more. Nothing else. No other topics except maybe possibly one. I just want to say, everyone out there, have a good 4th of July. Remember what this is about. This holiday is not just about fireworks and hot dogs and swimming at the pool and everything. That's great. But really appreciate the fact that you live in the greatest country in the history of the world at the best time ever to be alive, and be thankful. Be thankful that a bunch of really brave men hundreds of years ago set you down this path. Men who are smarter than you. Men who know more philosophy, more politics, more about life than you do now with your smartphone and your internet connection. People like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and George Washington, these moral giants who understood the way that the world works in the minds of men and set up this system that we all get to enjoy 250 years later. So be thankful and have a good 4th of July. Listen, if you're going to blow up some fireworks, use the little lighter with the extra little bit. Don't get your hands so close, people. Don't blow off any fingers, and don't put your hot firework debris in the trash can and then put the trash can up against your house. Okay? Don't do those things. Don't blow off your fingers. Don't burn down your house. Have fun. Be safe. Be responsible. And I will catch you guys next Friday.